Guys, we will also get a chance to hear from Carlton Thompson. Carlton is going to be just about staying in the game and just keeping on top of things so you never lighten up your focus, that you are consistently working and you're getting all those orders written up. Our TGP guys, I think, mostly know this, but orders per day, no one on our team gets as much as Carlton. Calvin is high. I'm hit or miss sometimes. We have a lot of great salespeople, but you want to talk orders per day, Carlton's the guy. All right. He's the guy. And anytime Carlton is on the call, it's going to be amazing because he's excited to bring the goods. Guys, the reality is, if you do not know Carlton Thompson, you're about to be in for a treat. And if you do not love Carlton Thompson, it's a you problem. Trust me, it's you. None of us like you either if you don't like Carlton. But the reason why is because Carlton, in everything he does in this business, he pours out positivity, he pours out energy, he pours out belief. And that's just a damn underrated thing in our business, especially being in sales, especially selling the way we do. The hours are long and the days are a grind. But I think the single biggest thing that I want to make sure, people understand about Carlton, yes, he writes up a ton of orders. Yes, he sells a ton of Cutco, and he does it in this almost quiet and humble way. But here's the thing. As fast as he can be going through this, and the fact that he'll talk to everyone, he never rushes his customers. And I know that sounds really simple and easy when I say that, but the reason I know that is because no one self-identifies quicker than Carlton Thompson's customer. The thing is that Carlton works with a ton of people, he sells to a ton of people, but these people feel seen, these people feel heard, these people feel served on a high level, and that's a unique combination. It's not that he's just treating people with this transactional flair and just writing up as many things as he can. Carlton invests the time with people, but he's efficient and he spends the time needed and he pulls out when it's appropriate so he can move on with his day and send them out on a high note and a great feeling. So guys, we're in such good hands here. I'm going to stop talking. Let me turn you over to the greatness to Mr. Carlton Thompson.
Love it. Whew. All right, let's get into this. Max orders by staying in the deal. Max orders by staying in the deal. I'm going to start by mentioning that I'm going to 100% bite off of Brandon Brown. And I'm going to be giving my version of Brandon Brown's talk this year at the net meeting. The analogy or the illustration he used was with chess. I recently went to Jason Jeffrey's retreat as an invitee. And I met this guy named Marco. He's from South Texas. He's starting to sell a lot of Cutco right now. One of the most impressive people I've met in a long time in Cutco, just as far as like how well-rounded and cool this guy was. But he was in chess. He was like a really good chess player. And although Brandon talked about chess this year, I didn't really get interested in it. But I started to find out some things about chess that were really interesting. I didn't know that becoming a grandmaster was as hard, if not harder, than becoming a rocket scientist in some cases. It's almost like having a PhD or a doctorate level lifetime title that you have whenever you're a grandmaster. It made me like, I just got so intrigued. And one of my friends was talking about getting off of social media and he's playing chess. And then when I did that, I became obsessed with chess this past week. I've been playing the crap out of it. And it's made me think a lot about the business. And it's made me think a lot about closing. And it made me think a whole lot about what we're doing, especially when we're at the end of a transaction. So today I'm going to be breaking down staying in the deal into 3 parts that do relate to chess. Number 1 would be the opening. Number 2 would be the mid game. And number 3 would be the end game. And I will be bringing a chessboard to Dangerfield, and I will probably get ran at chess because I'm still trash at it, but that's besides the point. But let's talk first about the opening, okay? So when you think about closing a deal, there's actually openings that are involved with how you close your deal. And there's actually, in my opinion, there's multiple schools of thought on how you actually open whenever you're closing your deals. And when I say multiple schools of thought, I think there's mainly 2 schools of thought nowadays in the way we sell Cutco. It's going to be based on you guys' personal beliefs. My 2 main beliefs on how people bring up opening a deal is number 1, with either leading off of an offer, or number 2 is not leading off of an offer. That's what happens in an opening whenever you're closing a deal. And I know that there's some people who are kind of in the middle on this, that how you're offering and what you're offering and how aggressive you're offering something as far as whatever it is will vary, first of all. But I do want to mention something I heard from Jess Miser at the Jason Jeffrey retreat. He mentioned on 5P specials, he said, don't sweat $30 when you're making 250. What he's talking about is all the incentives you can offer to customers without giving the boat away or giving the farm away or the animals, however you phrase that. He's talking about when you offer your $600 5P special, when you could just give them the $30 and also mention customization. You know, this is how Cutco wants us to package this. You're able to customize that. I'm not even going to charge you for that. And this is Cutco qualifies this as a set. So this is what you're getting here for at the event. So whatever you do here is totally fine. But whenever you think also too, relating this back to chess, there's one of the really important things you'll come to find if you start studying or watching videos is that there's multiple openings. The London system, the King's Indian, the Carl Khan, there's the King's Gambit, the Queen's Gambit. There's a bunch of different ways you can open, but how you do that and how you choose to do that, I would at least implore you to think more deeply about what you're offering when you open with an offer, because there's limited time with a customer. So please be mindful whenever you do actually first offer anything to your customer. And for some of you guys, you offer nothing, which is fine. Just know what you're doing and how you're going to do that, okay? The second thing we're going to talk about is the mid game. This is more of where you're going to discover things like issues, body language. You're going to be collecting verbal information or verbal and nonverbal communication from your customer. This will then dictate where you go from here. And what I wanted to do is, instead of just me speaking on this topic, I actually wanted to share examples from other top reps, some of them that you're probably going to hear from, or I already heard from actually, to actually illustrate through lines and things that we can take from other reps that will help us to close more deals. So mid game, staying in the deal. Let's get into this. Okay. One of the first things I was actually going to share with you guys is Brandon Brown. So he did this at a federal summit, like it had to be in like 2018 or 2017. And one of the things he did was in the middle of the demo. Now, of course, us on military bases, we're seeing people who most of the time are going to bring up this whole spouse stall thing. And what he did is in the middle of the demo is he did something that I was going to kind of rephrase the way Chelsea actually does this. She always mentions this whenever the spouse stall is probably going to be a thing. She always brings up budget. So who's in charge? So who does most of the cooking and who does most of the budgeting? One thing I also wanted to mention too is that he brought up the budget. So like, would that be something, if we found something that you liked and you felt comfortable budgeting for, is that something you'd be okay with making a decision on without your spouse being here? So there's something interesting about this whole ball and chain thing. He even said that at the end of him saying that. He's like, you're tying the ball and chain to the booth.
The cooking, right? So if one person walks up, do you do most of the cooking, right? That's like step one, right? Which most of you know, most of you ask. And let's say, Chelsea's like, yeah, I do most of the cooking. Great, okay. That doesn't mean she can necessarily make the decision on her own. All right, so the next question I'll ask is, well, Chelsea, you do most of the cooking. Is it safe to say that you're in charge of all the kitchen needs and making decisions for the kitchen? And again, she might say yes, but don't bank on that being enough to close the deal at the end, right? So that's like step two. And then and again, it's feeling into the situation. The third one, which some of you may have heard me say before, but probably don't practice as frequently, is this. So Chelsea, I know you're in the market for good knives, and I know your husband isn't here right now, but if you did see something that you really liked, and it's something that I could get you a really good deal on, and it fit into your budget, is that something you could make a decision on by yourself? Yes. So I know you're in the market for good knives. So if you did see something that you really liked and that I could get you a really good deal on and fit into your budget, would that be something you could make a decision on by yourself? All right, so before you even get too far into like the pitch, you're basically tying them ball and chain to the booth. Like they're not leaving until they buy something.
In 2023, Brandon gave the same talk. He's been giving this similar talk about closing for like 4 years. This year, what he said that was different is that he's noticed that there's been a little bit of like push and pull with customers that's more uncomfortable. That wasn't the verbiage he used, but he said something to the nature of he's doing more to make it more of a conversation. So in the mid game, what you want to think more about is creating open dialogue. Whatever it takes to create more open dialogue, to receive more information, to be able to use that as leverage at the end, to be able to have a more open conversation. Because then whenever the customer feels like you're with them even more, then of course it will then help you to close more deals. There's another thing that Curtis actually talked about in 2016. I wanted to see if Coyote would put in the chat. What year did you start selling Cutco, Coyote?
2017.
2017. This was it's funny because Curtis is giving a talk in 2023, the year before Coyote even started selling Cutco. This was something that we heard from Curtis. This was actually a voice memo I had at a state fair meeting in September 2016. 12:37. Let's get to this. Let me see if y'all be able to hear this. And if you can't hear it, just let me know, and then we'll go from there. It's very similar to what something he just said on the call too.
Put it close to the speaker.
Yeah, we hear that a lot at our booth. Okay? Or they just say, we just got here. Yeah, we hear that a lot at our booth. Okay? Whatever their excuse is, it goes right into this hard close. Okay? Oh yeah, we hear that a lot at our booth. The reason why we hear that at our booth is because people are not expecting to spend that kind of money on a set of knives today. But what we have found, okay, now have you guys ever noticed if you put a but, it omits what you just said, right? But what we have found is that a lot of our customers like to come up to the show and buy their product here because it's the cheapest price that you can find it, okay? Oh, we hear that a lot at our show, and the reason why we hear that a lot of our show is because people don't expect to spend that kind of money on a set of knives today. But what we have found is that our customers like to come up to the booth and buy here because it's the cheapest price that you're going to find at Cutco, right? Now, like I said earlier, you can split this setup into 5 payments interest-free, which means you only pay $200 today, but you'll spend that here at the fair on random stuff that's not going to last you a lifetime. Okay? We allow you to split it up into the 5 payments. It only costs you block today, which you know you're going to spend that on random stuff every single day or every single month, right? But it's not going to last you forever. Now, earlier you told me that you were looking for a good set of knives. And most of the time when people, because you guys know in the script, you'll see it, right? Now, earlier you said that you were looking for a good set of knives, right? And when people say they have to think about it, it's because of one of 2 things. Either A, it's too much money, or it's too many pieces. So if you were to answer the question, is it too much money for the set, or is it too many pieces that you have to think about?
Okay, right there. Okay, so there's a few things I want to point out right here, okay? Number one, Seth Kinsler uses the term unplanned purchase, or didn't expect to spend that money on knives today. One term Josh uses whenever he says something like this: are you guys even in the market to spend he said this years ago, are you guys even in the market to spend $1,000 on a set of knives today? So you relieve some of the pressure by acknowledging this first thing, that it's unplanned, not expected. The second thing is reminding the customer of why there's incentive to buy here. A lot of people are going to demonize the whole, it's less expensive to get it here, which is fine if you want to demonize that. You can, if you're the other end of the spectrum, the guys who are selling full price, you can always replace the word discount with incentives to purchase here, or bonuses that you get here rather than buying anywhere else. Okay. And then what was interesting is that through that, what's the through line through Brandon Brown and through Curtis, through these both things with the mid game? The through line is that they're opening up dialogue and acknowledging things that customers need to be at the front of their mind when you're able to close a deal. Okay. At the end of all of that, whenever he mentioned all of it, what was the last question he asked them? It had nothing to do with give them another deal. It was only about the price and or the package, which we all know whenever we're closing, those are the two main things that will help us to move forward in a transaction. And there's one thing I want to point out really, really important here is above all else, with all these like closing tactics and tactical things that would actually help someone close a deal, I do believe that the vibes are so important to every interaction, because there's this general tightness that happens whenever you lose deals multiple times. There's a general tightness that happens whenever you're overthinking your approach, whenever you're overthinking getting to the end, and it's the fourth person that said they're going to think about it. So the positive, upbeat, calm, rather than the tightness that you can feel whenever you get to the end of a transaction and you've had a tough day. I just really want to make sure that there's something to be said for if you can leverage your booth mates, if you can leverage your mentality, if it's meditating or saying a prayer, or if it's taking a break or taking whatever it is, if you can at least like put yourself in check at all times, that is what seems to be even more important than any tactics that I or anyone else can really tell you on the call. There's something about getting the first order, and then when it gets rolling, it's just rolling. It doesn't matter if it was a cutting board, but that first order, it just gives you that momentum to keep it pumping. And there's one thing I wanted to really mention with the spouse stall here that I don't think has ever been mentioned, is this one simple question, because I feel like the whole ball and chain thing, the asking people about their budget and getting into it middle of their approach can be a little uncomfortable. So what I've been noticing that can help, and in my opinion, even especially with smaller orders, because it seems like the bigger orders, it can be really tough to close those with a spouse stall. It just can. It's just a fact that I've personally dealt with for years, especially on bases, is asking this particular question. Do you really think she would say no? Do you really think she would say no? I mean, and then this again is going to open up a more clear, open, honest dialogue. Because if you can ask in that way, this can truly help you to get to the point. And there's one other point I want to bring up that I don't think ever gets mentioned, is if you can somehow get the customer to say, they'll tell me to get whatever I want. I personally was uncomfortable in the past with just saying, let's just do it now then. But if you can get over that, like, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but if you can actually just say that to the customer and just go, if they're going to let you they're going to say, get whatever you want, let's just do it. Let's just do it. And then it's going to, again, let them, it gives them the reins again to then express more concern, because it's usually just the customer being uncomfortable at that point more than it is the objection. Okay. So I really want to hit on that. And then hopefully I'm not over time here, but I'm wrapping up here. I was going to share a Josh Mueller video for this very last part. That was something I've gone to anytime I've had a problem closing. It's a Brian Carter video that he posted of Josh going over the stall closed.
So I'll role play it really quick. Brian says to me, hey, I want to think about it. Hey, cool, Brian, no problem. That's totally cool. Let me go and write it down for you before you leave. I'm giving them permission to leave, right? So let me go and write that down. They're like, yeah, sure. Okay, Brian, what's your number? Okay, cool. So just to be sure I'm writing the right stuff down here, I'm just curious. So if you were to do this, you would get this set right here, right? Okay, awesome. And if you were to do that, what color would you want? Boom. Okay, and what color would you want on the black? On the block, the light or the dark stain? The light stain. Okay, awesome. And if you were to do that, like, is that something you would pay for all at once, or do you like the idea of doing the payments? Okay, awesome. So I'll write down that information for you. Hey, I'm just curious, like, if you had that package right there, I know you said that would be the set you would get, but would you use all of that if you had it? You would? Okay, that's awesome. And just to confirm, like, I'm just curious, like, if you were to do that, is that something that you could swing in the budget if you really wanted to without breaking the bank? It is? Awesome. Okay, cool. So I'm just, Brian, I'm curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, just so that we have this, just so I know, how interested are you actually in getting this? Like, 1 being like you're totally not interested, you were just curious, and now you've got the information you need, and 10 being like you love it, you're ready to buy it, like, you're just like, you would hand me your credit card right now. Okay, you're a 7? Hey man, that's awesome. 7 out of 10, that's 70%. That's awesome, man. That's great. High five. All right, cool. So great. Well, let me go ahead and write down the price. Just say, hey, you know what, Brian, I'm just curious, like, while I've got you here, can I just be super direct with you right now? Yeah, okay. So, dude, I've been doing this for, 17 years, and, and this isn't my first rodeo. And if you're at the rodeo, that's a fun one. They like to laugh at that. So, this isn't my first rodeo. And here's the deal. Like, people tell me all of the time that they're going to walk around, think about it, and come back. And you know what usually happens? You're right, yeah, they don't ever come back. And it's not because they don't like me or they don't like Cutco, it's just because, it's a big show, it's a busy day, there's lots to see, and usually by the time somebody even thinks about it again, they're already at the car, or they just got home and they're starting to cook with their old crappy knives, and they're like, oh crap, I forgot to go back and get those knives I was planning on getting anyways. So here's the deal, man. I can tell that you really like it. I can tell you really need it. It seems like we're on the perfect set here for you. And it seems like, price, it's really not about the price. Like, you could afford it if you really wanted to. And I mean, dude, you're a 7 out of 10 right now. So I would really love to earn your business. I would really love to be your Cutco guy, simply because I know how much you're gonna love this stuff. And when you shop with me, you're gonna get great service. I'm gonna take care of your sharpening in the future. I'm gonna make sure that any time that you need me, I'm available, and that you feel really well taken care of, and that you're getting world-class service. So instead of you walking around thinking about it and maybe not even coming back, just because you forgot, I'm just curious, like, if I offered you a turbo, ridiculous, killer sweet deal right now, would you consider doing it now so that you don't have to worry about coming back? That's it, boom, right? You ask the question, if they say yes or whatever, then the moment that you have permission to show them a better deal, now you just have to justify why you're giving them that deal.
There's a couple editor's notes I want to make to that. And it's about the question, the scaling question, the scale to 1 to 10. We all know about this question when closing. Josh fires it off pretty early in his role play. My belief is that if you are going to fire off 1 to 10 early, what you should do beforehand is at least open up a dialogue. There's a reason why the scaling 1 to 10 question works better later. And the reason why, in my belief, is because if you can get customers to communicate something with you that can give you more information, it's gonna be less of this spaciness. And the challenge with the scale to 1 to 10 question is that it opens up negotiation so heavily that you're almost giving the customer the reins too much. So what I would recommend, if anyone does use the scaling 1 to 10 question, I would challenge you to really think about that follow-up question that Brandon has asked in the past. He goes, well, what would it take to get you to like an 8 or 9 or almost to a 10? When you ask that question, I'm telling you right now, this is a very aggressive, giving them too much power question, okay? So if you notice the way Josh uses the scaling to 1 to 10 question, he doesn't ask that next question. What he does is he then builds the framework. He then, after he asks the scale to 1 to 10, he'll go, okay, if I went a little bit further for you and sweeten the deal for you before you take off, would you be open to considering pulling the trigger today? That, to me, is a way better way to use the 1 to 10 rather than giving them all the control in the approach. So, and there's one other added Josh question that you can ask before you ask the scaling 1 to 10 question. That would be this. And Brandon Brown uses this question as well. What is the biggest thing holding you back right now? What's the biggest thing holding you back from pulling the trigger right now? Okay. Those are the two things that I believe are some of the most important questions above like the pre-closing questions, because the pre-closing questions is a little bit whack to me. I'm not gonna lie. Like pre-closing questions, what's the most important thing that needs to be asked? What's holding you back? And is this the right set? Those are the important pre-closing questions. Color, block, and all that. It's just dance. You're tiptoeing, So that's my belief. You take it or leave it. And then, of course, when you give the deal, give them a reason why they're giving the deal. This is something I learned from Curtis a long time ago as well. But in closing, ultimately, the game we play, it is won and lost literally by this last thing, and it's the close. The last 10% is 100% of our income. I've been obsessed with this for years. I even back in the day was on Grant Cardone's closing survival guide, and I've only ever wanted to learn more about closing. And honestly, doing the research for this talk has made me realize that I am a savage at closing, and it's helped me close more deals even yesterday. I just want to just make sure that we continue to exercise this muscle that we have, that we are truly giants in the business. This is such a unique group of people, and I do want us to just continue to flex as such. And thank you. I hope you got something out of this, and I can't wait to see y'all in Dangerfield. Thank you.
Woo! That was fire, man. That was fire. By the way, when we do the video, I'll have you send me that audio from Curtis, and we'll splice it right in the video. So we go back, everyone, we could hear it, but everyone will hear it crystal clear. Damn, man, damn. I had so many great notes that I took in there myself. I want to kind of just, because again, y'all are doing so great time-wise. Thank y'all for so expertly preparing quality messages and delivering them so efficiently. You and Curtis both. Josh, let's see you stay on time. I never do. That's as a rule. Carlton, I one thing I just wanted to throw out here, you know, when it comes to maxing out your orders per day, one of the things that happens at the fair, we go into it, and I think we're ready for that midline expectation. We're ready for a busy day where we stay pretty busy and we stay focused. I think a big area of opportunity for a lot of us, though, are the slow days, all right, where it feels like the turns are harder to come by. Sometimes we over prospect people, we over qualify people, or we just we get a little down on the day. I've done that. We get too quick to give up on it. And then the other extreme is those busy days where we're slammed. And there's a big opportunity where you could write up 20 orders in a day. Now, it's okay if you don't. Sometimes you need the extra time with people, and it's time well spent, time well invested. But honestly, if I would challenge, if people have never had a 15, 17, 18, 20, 25 order day, you know, you're probably losing out some of those busiest days. How do you think you keep yourself in check just to be in a good flow state, maximizing your days on, you know, whether it's the slower days or the busier days? Because those, I think, are the two biggest area of opportunities for most of our team.
I would say Schmitty and I, years ago, we had an experience where it was like the hurricane year of the State Fair of Texas. And we talked to 3 people that day. And somehow it was just like the best day ever. And there's, even to this day, I still text Schmitty all the time here and there just because I'm mad that he left. And he's like, man, you remember that day that we were at the State Fair? Like, he still mentions it. And it's one of these things where you can either be a victim or you can be empowered. I mean, there's just really there's two schools out there. And there's something about whenever stuff is painful that you can experience more joy and more gratitude just because you're able to elevate vibes. And we wrote 3 orders for like 2,200 that day, and we did it all on vibes, having a great time. And on the busy days, I would say those, in my opinion, are more challenging because you don't know if you're talking to the right customer. You don't know if you're going to be able to, you know, everyone's ripping orders all day long. So you feel this weird outward pressure. And I think it would go back to what Curtis said earlier, and just, you have to let all of that go. Calvin does the same. The Calvin is a superpower with that, you know, with not letting the exteriors get to him. So I would say you have to maintain an even emotional keel. Even my basketball coach, I was trash at basketball too, but that's one thing he used to always say: the people that are the best keep an even keel. They, if it's good, if it's bad, they stay in their lane, you know? So you have to just find some type of way and know yourself to be in a state where you can produce as much as possible, is what I would say.
That's awesome, man. Comparison is the thief of joy, as they say. Well, that was fantastic, Carlton. Thank you for your preparation, guys.